I am here today with Dr. Sarah Myhill, and we are going to talk about our upcoming event in March in Cheshire with Dr. Bryan Ardis and Dr. Sarah Myhill and 7 other guest speakers. A great audience, a great venue, a good energy venue, and a good energy audience, and very good energy speakers. Sarah, thank you for coming along today.
My pleasure. I have to say, I'm much looking forward to March. I think this is a great opportunity to put out the important messages that people need to know to improve their own health.
Yeah, and you're quite a big advocate of the do-it-yourself, self-care is the only healthcare type
Correct.
thing. Can you delve into a bit how that works and
Correct.
how you see the information that you can get out there being applied and people taking it on board and actually doing something about their health?
Correct. The problem is the whole of our medical system, including the NHS, has been corrupted by Big Pharma. And so no longer are doctors able to use their intelligence, their detective skills to diagnose and work out mechanisms of disease. People are just dropped into simple algorithms which end up with the drug prescription. People don't want that. People want to know why they have symptoms and the mechanisms that drive those symptoms, because that then has implications for management which they can do themselves. Now, I've been in this business for over 4 decades now, and I have put together what I believe to be a very comprehensive set of interventions, of tools that we can use to improve our health. And it all starts with diet. It all starts with good quality food, and I'm a great advocate of the paleo ketogenic diet, and we will discuss at length why that is so.
Yeah.
But as I say, in the early 1980s, when I started off in general practice, it was relatively easy to get people well. Now it's much more complicated.
And are you seeing that people are definitely sicker now than your experience in the past?
Absolutely, yes. And guess what? Life expectancy is falling, and dementia has massively increased since the early 1980s. Cancer, we're seeing cancer in young people that should never have cancer, and the age of onset of diabetes and heart disease is getting younger and younger all the time. And these are all preventable conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, the interventions might not be easy to do, practically easy, but they're intellectually easy.
What are the easiest things do you think that people can do? What do you think one of the easier things lifestyle-wise that most people could tackle and get a good run at a starting point on a self-healing journey?
The most important things are the least easy things to do. There's an inverse relationship.
Okay.
So the most important thing to do is to change your diet. And that's also the most difficult thing I ask people to do. And the biggest single driver of modern disease is our addiction to sugars, ultra-processed foods, and fast carbohydrates. Why? They're cheap, convenient, easy, addictive.
They're highly addictive, aren't they? I'm a bit of a bread monster, and you and I chatted yesterday about keto and health, and I'm in the food game. I've got 3 warehouses full of organic food. I've got all the organic food in the world, and I find the diet thing tough. Interestingly, having spoken to you yesterday, it made me do something very different that I haven't done for a while. And I think when people are very knowledgeable, they can be very persuasive.
Yes.
And that's important. And that's why these events are important, because the energy of the speaker coming through these sound systems in the room, you're seeing it, you're hearing it, you're feeling the energy in the room. It resonates, the truth resonates, as you know, and it goes in.
Correct.
And it kind of gives them the willpower that they otherwise lack. And I've got no excuses. I can have the perfect diet. I've got all the organic food in the world, but I can be addicted to the carbs and all the rest of it. And I need to get my act together. So I was very interested in what you were saying. And it's amazing when people have got the knowledge, it comes across and it does motivate.
Correct. But it's more important than that, because at an actual event, people can cross-examine you. They can dig deep. And if you can't stand up to that sort of detailed cross-examination, then you are not sincere, and you're not honest, you're not trustworthy. And so the joy of actually attending an event like that is you can see how committed that speaker is. And as I say, because I do training courses for practitioners. And I say to all my practitioners, if you're going to talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. If you can't do it yourself, then you are not genuine. And how can you possibly expect people to follow in your path? If you're saying, do as I say, not as I do. So the joy of a big conference like that is people can see you through their own eyes, first-hand experience that the sort of person that you are. And then they can listen very carefully to the content of what you're saying. And if there are any holes in that argument, they can pin you down and cross-examine you. That is a proper speaker. That's somebody who's prepared to be cross-examined. You talk to any vaccine advocate or conventional doctor, they're not prepared to subject themselves to that sort of interrogation anymore.
Absolutely.
And that's because they're not genuine, and they don't really believe in what they're doing.
Well, I first came across you. I mean, I knew of you anyway. We're in the same space in many ways. We're in the health. We're in the food game, the organic food and essentials and natural remedies game, with a view to providing awakened people with the tools and the gizmos and the gadgets and the information, knowledge, the books that they need to conduct a serious self-healing journey. And again, with that hat on, self-care is the only healthcare. And I had the pleasure of seeing you at one of Philly G. Lay's events in London at the College of Natural Medicine. And the subject matter of the day, you were talking about, is it exclusion zone water or something like that? It was fascinating, but I had to do something, and they literally had to drag me away from it. I was really wrapped up in the conversation, and that's one of the subjects that you're going. So you've got 3 different days. I'll put up the event just while we're talking about it. So the event is called the Healing Frequencies and Natural Therapies Summit. It's the March 23rd to 27th. You're the opening keynote speaker on March 23rd. So the first lecture's coming from you, Sarah. No pressure. I know that'll be a walk in the park for you anyway, because you're a seasoned veteran in this space. And then Bryan Ardis flies in with his lovely wife Jane from America, and he'll be arriving on the Tuesday late afternoon, and then he's keynote speaker for the last 3 days. And thankfully, you were only scheduled for 2 days to start with, and you've agreed to extend for that 3rd day, which gives us the sort of the jackpot, as far as I'm concerned, of you and Bryan speaking together on the same day at this very important event, along with other speakers as well. So we're really looking forward to it. And you're going to cover the exclusion zone water in one of your lectures?
Of course, as I say, there are 2 major drivers of disease. That's energy delivery mechanisms, and I know about that through my interest in chronic fatigue syndrome, and inflammation. And exclusion zone water is central to both of those mechanisms functioning cleanly and in a frictionless way. So yes, it is central to the whole of medicine. In fact, I don't think we can really understand what's going on in the body and how it's working without familiarity with exclusion zone water and what it does and how we can improve that. It's been one of the most useful topics I've learned about the last 3 or 4 years, and it has very clear clinical applications, things that you and I can do very simply to improve EZ water.
So you're saying that you learned about the exclusion zone water only 3 or 4 years ago?
Correct. It's only been discovered by Gerald Pollack in the last couple of decades, and it's only reached the level of medical application in the last few years. And I like to think I'm one of the early doctors who recognized the importance of that and started to provide it and to give it clinical application.
And you've given me 6 different subjects, and they're available on the website. And for anybody who's interested, they can scan that little code. It's probably, I don't like QR codes, but it is a good way to get long website addresses up. So if you scan that, that's going to take you straight to the website. And there's a section there that covers each day of the 5-day event. So you can come for 1 day, 3 days, 5 days. You can stay at the hotel. It's a great hotel. We had Barbara O'Neill there. You've met Barbara before, I think, Sarah?
I know her, but I haven't met her.
Yeah, we've done about 6 events with Barbara now, and she's got a very grueling schedule. And People love her. She's got some very interesting ways of putting things. I mean, Barbara's in a room and she wags her little finger at you and she points at you. You take it on board, and she's quite motherly, stroke grandmotherly. She would kill me for saying that, but she's there. She's self-admittedly, she's very shy. She's not shy on stage. And you're not shy on stage. You've got a good stage presence, as has Bryan Ardis. You know, we've got Philly G. Lay there. She's going to be doing 2 lectures on the Thursday and Friday. We've got Clive DeCarl. You know Clive well?
I know Clive, yes.
Clive's great. We've got Thomas Warrior. We've got an amazing lineup of other speakers as well that people can see. So it's a pretty action-packed schedule. And it's for us, it's a bit of an energy play. You've been to these events when the energy works. You get that energy working. Good speakers, good building, good socialising opportunities, good exhibitors are important as well. Sarah, you would find that at events when you've got Clive DeCarl with his magic chairs and a lot of these woo-woo devices that we all love so much and products that we want to get access to. It makes these events very, very special.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the message I want to get over is we all have it within ourselves to heal and repair. We know we don't need expensive woo-woo interventions. The science is there, the logic is there, the tools are there, and it's within all our powers to implement those tools. And when we're learning something, I always think there has to be an emotion attached to it, whether that's excitement at learning something new or attraction to the speaker or something funny. Sometimes I tell jokes when I'm on stage and people remember the jokes and forget everything else I've said.
Humour's important. We spoke about Dr. Malcolm Kendrick the other day. Correct. And Malcolm's spoken at a couple of our events, and he's always very funny and dry, and it certainly gets the point across, because they're difficult subjects without humour. We've all been through so much, Sarah, as well, that bit of humour makes a huge difference to the outcome.
And it also illustrates the point. You can't be humorous about something unless you're a master of that subject. Because if you're not a master of subject, you're concentrating, what do I say next? What do I say next? But if it's intrinsic, if it flows, and the humour is the icing on the cake, again, it adds conviction and honesty and truth to everything that you're trying to disseminate.
Well, you can have fun with it, and it is important. It's a show we're putting on, and after all, they're paying for a ticket. They're sitting there. They want to be entertained. Now, they're entertained with the information. They're entertained with the humour. They're entertained with the conversations over lunch and dinners and that type of thing. But they're also entertained and stimulated mentally by the thought that I have some hope here. And that gives them a chance. It's a hopeless situation for a lot of people, their health. And they need some answers, 1 or 2 good answers that they can latch on to. People like yourself they can talk to. Books they can buy that back it up as well.
Correct. There's a very clear path that can be walked. And as I get older and perhaps wiser, that path becomes more clear. And if it's not a clear path, people aren't going to walk it.
Agreed. And what kind of problems are you seeing coming up most? Because you run your own events, and I've had lots of great feedback on your events from customers of ours who've been there. And I would love to, and this is for the future, and we'll get a chance to catch up in March, and we'll do this event and we'll see how that goes. But I would love to work with you at some point in the future about one of your events perhaps being expanded to a venue like this, where we take it and there's 300 people can attend. And I think that's what we're doing with Barbara and Neil in October. We've got a retreat style event and a 5-day retreat where the food's all Barbara's foods, and it's her structure. And I would love something where we open it up and have your structured event available to a large audience in a venue like this that are friendly to our cause.
Of course we can do that. Of course. I mean, the biggest problem I see, of course, is fatigue. And I always think energy is like money. It's jolly hard work earning. It's great fun spending it. And so, I'm talking about regimes that allow people to generate as much energy as they can. And with energy, you can live a life mentally, physically, and emotionally. energy is my big subject, really. And I'm so pleased we're opening with that, because it's also the prelude to all other subjects, to preventing disease, treating severe malignancy.
I was pleased to see your lecture subjects, and with the addition of the extra day on Wednesday where you're going to be speaking on the same stage as Brian, because I didn't want you two guys to miss each other. So we've got Bryan Ardis on first on the Wednesday, and then you with two back-to-back lectures with a break in between. Do you want to quickly talk through your 6 lecture subjects so that we can expand on that and what you're going to cover? A sort of teaser for each of them, I suppose.
The first lecture will be the energy equation. And that's all about how the body generates energy, what we need to eat, which supplements we need to take, sleep, exercise, detox regimes to optimize energy delivery mechanisms. The second lecture will be about inflammation. And that is, as we touched upon, it's centered around exclusion zone water. All the things and all the reasons why we get into an inflamed state, all the things we can do to prevent that from happening, and detail some of the conditions that result if inflammation goes wrong, allergy and autoimmunity. On the second day, I'm going to be talking about the first lecture will be a story. The fact is, we are all poisoned. Whether we like it or not, we are all poisoned from our diet, from things that we are inadvertently exposed to, chemicals, pesticide residues, heavy metals. And I will detail the history of that, which goes back a couple of hundred years. The second lecture on the second day, so that's lecture number 4, I will detail the detoxification regimes that I've evolved that deals with those poisonings. And these are all detox regimes that we can all do. They're not expensive. We all must do, and are of proven benefit. So I shall go through the science that shows how those detoxification regimes are effective. And on the last day, I want to talk about vaccines, because vaccines have become a religion. We now know there is very little science behind vaccines. They have become a religious mantra that we are forced to believe in. And people will support the idea that vaccines are effectively not because they have any science, but because that's just what they've been brainwashed into believing and understanding. So we will go through the science of that and how we can survive life without vaccines. In fact, how we can survive life very much better without vaccines. Yeah. And then I thought I would finish the session talking about malignant disease, because malignant disease is now extremely common and is the end point of all these things going wrong. It's the end point of what happens when we have poor energy delivery mechanisms, when we have inflammation, when we are poisoned, either directly or immunologically poisoned. And so the last lecture essentially will be a resume of all that's gone before, what we should all be doing now to prevent malignant disease, and then a few extra tricks of the trade that we can do to treat malignant disease in parallel with conventional therapy, as experienced by myself firsthand with my patients, or very good evidence base for other therapies. Those 6 lectures will cover a huge swathe of naturopathic or ecological medicine and give people the understanding and the tools so they can prevent and treat and help themselves.
So there's 5 days. It starts on Monday the 23rd. It runs to the 27th. There's a dinner dance on the 27th with Bryan Ardis. We tend to always finish with a dinner dance. We did it first with Barbara Neal, and we weren't sure. We did a Kaylee, and Barbara Neal was a strong advocate for 9 p.m. going to bed, and she's never seen beyond 9 p.m. Was up to about 11:30 doing the Highland jig in Scotland. So it was great to see. But what we've found at these events, because people are there for 3 to 5 days, they've met new friends. They've maybe sacrificed their time. They've certainly sacrificed money, but they've learned a lot. Doing some kind of dinner dance at the end is a good way for people to just say goodbye to each other in a nice way, say goodbye to some of the speakers. Now, sadly, you're away on the Wednesday, so can't be joining for that, but you'll be there in spirit, I'm sure, anyway. And people will get their chance to say goodbye to you on the Wednesday as well. I was very pleased to get you, and I've kind of put yourself and Bryan Ardis as the keynote speakers of this, and we've got the other speakers there as well. But amazing the amount of people who they're coming we've got 2-day tickets, and a lot of them are coming just to see yourself, Sarah, as well. There's a big market for what you do. A lot of people have seen you before and they want more, and it's a really good sign. I'm very pleased with the response.
Well, that's lovely. And of course, the coffee breaks and the lunch breaks and the meal breaks, I can sit around and I can chat with anybody or any who comes up and asks, or the group comes up, so I'm a good talker. I'm gobby, as my daughters put it. So
gobby's good. Gobby's good for these events. And Sarah, you've written, how many books? Is it 6 or 7?
Something like that, yeah.
Now, we sell a lot of books. I think we've got one of your books in, but we want to get more of your books in, and I'd quite like to get some of your books there. We'll get some, if it's okay with you, we'll do some photo ops and signings if people in the breaks and things.
Well, I'll chat up my lovely publisher, Georgina, because she often comes to the events. So she could maybe have a bookstall and sell books. And yes, of course, I can sit there and sign books, and people can come up and ask me there. In fact, that might be a good kind of meeting hub for people to congregate. So that's a very good idea, Steve. I'll ask Georgina if she's up for that.
Perfect. And of the books that you've written, I mean, what was the first book you wrote?
The first book I wrote was Chronic Fatigue Syndrome. It's mitochondria, not hypochondria. Mm-hmm. And I felt qualified to write that because I just completed our 3rd scientific paper about the pathophysiological mechanisms of mitochondrial dysfunction in fatigue syndromes. And it was a bit technical, but the book allowed me to put it into this is how you do it yourself because nobody else is doing it for you style. And from that, I realized that there was a need for a more simple book to describe energy, and that's why the energy equation evolved. I then went on to write the infection game because people who have ME is chronic fatigue syndrome and inflammation, and so I wanted to explore the inflammatory hole in the energy bucket
and is it always inflammation when it comes to ME? Is inflammation? Yeah.
ME is poor energy delivery mechanisms and inflammation, which might be allergy, it might be autoimmunity, it might be chronic infection, it might be a bit of all three. So the infection game is how we can optimize our immunity to make ourselves resistant to chronic infections and reduce the risk of allergy and autoimmunity. And then from that became a bigger book, which was addresses the whole of medicine, which is ecological medicine. So the first version was called Sustainable Medicine, and now Ecological Medicine came out. That's now on the 2nd edition. And then, of course, central to all this is the diet. So that's why I wrote the PK cookbook, the how and the why of paleo-ketogenic diets. And then one of my patients said, well, what does the pregnant mum do? And so as a result, that Green Mother came out.
I saw that one, yeah.
Yeah, preparation.
Is that a recent one?
More recent, yes. And I wrote that in conjunction, with a very dear friend of mine who was going through this whole process. And she went through a whole of her pregnancy, childbirth and child rearing, and reared both her children, both her girls who are now aged 5 and 6, on a ketogenic diet. And just observing how she did that. They're not vaccinated, of course, and they are just such calm, cool, quiet little lambs. It's just transformed their mental. They're just mentally very sound and physically extremely healthy. So the book's just evolved according to demand. As we speak, I'm writing a book about tests and how to interpret medical tests. I've just completed a book about my battles with the General Medical Council that illustrate how medicine has been dumbed down by the powers that be. So it's an evolving thing. Ideas come up and I write another book.
And how the battles with the medical powers that be, what it was they weren't happy with and how you've dealt with that, and is it ongoing?
They weren't happy with my ideas on medicine. So despite being the most investigated doctor in the history of the General Medical Council, and the present score I think is about 40, Myhill 45, GMC nil, there's never been a patient complaint. All the complaints have either come from doctors or from health authorities or from the General Medical Council itself, because they don't like my ideas. They don't like the fact that I can prevent and cure with simple nutritional naturopathic interventions. They don't like the fact that I can prevent, reverse, treat pathology with simple naturopathic interventions, diet, vitamin C, iodine, vitamin D, and so on and so forth. And so complaints arise. And I say in every single case, I have won. There's one case that's on its way to the European Court of Human Rights, but that's another long story. In fact, the week before last, I had yet another General Medical Council hearing, which I won. Again, it's such a waste of time and effort. I'd much rather be out there at conferences like the one we're going to be running in Chester. A far more productive use of my time.
And what are the ramifications when they raise a complaint against you? How does it impact you? Do they try and stop you from practicing? Yeah.
Of course, that's what they want to do. I think the real reason that they're doing it is during the 1980s and much more in the 1990s, I was doing quite a lot of campaigning work. And that, against the use of pesticides and chemicals, against silicone breast implants. And that resulted in appearances on Panorama and Dispatches and Tonight with Trevor and all that sort of thing. And essentially, my message was an anti-establishment message. It was an anti-drug message. It was an anti-big pharma message. And of course, the General Medical Council is bankrolled by Big Pharma. And so Big Pharma thought, well, we must get rid of this turbulent priest. We must get rid of this wretched doctor who is not conforming to establishment narratives. And the point is, when I get investigated by the General Medical Council, it goes up on the GMC register. Oh, bad doctor, being investigated, suspended, or whatever. So whenever an issue arises, if the BBC or ITV or GB News want to interview, I put my little hand up and they go to the GMC website. Oh, she's being investigated. Oh, she's suspended. She must be a bad doctor. And as a result, all that media work, Radio 4, local radio, disappeared.
Incredible.
So it's deliberate by the powers that be to silence me effectively, to prevent me from being an effective campaigner. And again, this is why conferences like the one you're setting up in Cheshire are so important, because it allows me to speak to people directly and for them to assess me without some sort of censoring body getting in the way, let's say.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I spoke to you the other day about something because I had my gallbladder removed. I'm fed up talking about it, but about 5 years ago, I had about 40 gallstone attacks and I was trying to change my diet. Again, couldn't, and drinking alcohol and eating pizzas was an easy option and all that kind of stuff. So guilty as charged, but I had too many attacks and I really felt it was actually adversely affecting me. I spoke to a surgeon. He was very good and he was very persuasive. And he said, look, you're going to do yourself some damage. We need to take it out. That's the only answer for you now. And he was very persuasive, but I've never felt the same since having it out. And I think it's affected my gut and my breathing.
Okay. Well, had I been that surgeon, I would have given the same advice. Because gallstones, it's incredibly painful when you pass a gallstone, but there's also a risk that if that gallstone gets stuck in the pancreatic duct, you will develop pancreatitis. And that is extremely serious, life-threatening condition.
Yeah,
so it's right to remove your gallbladder. But what they didn't do is address the underlying reasons why you had a gallbladder problem in the first place. And I think much of this is related to the upper fermenting gut. And of course, I'll talk about this at length in Cheshire. But if you have a diet that is high in sugars and refined carbohydrates, then the upper gut becomes a fermenting gut. And with a fermenting gut, we get a leaky gut. And with a leaky gut, we have hypochlorhydria. And then microbes make themselves at home inside the gut. And we now know that drives much pathology. I mean, one name for the upper fermenting gut is small bowel bacterial overgrowth. We know that is a major risk factor for pancreatic cancer. And we're seeing epidemics of pancreatic cancer. And it's a horrible cancer to have. It's very difficult to treat. So what I'm saying to people is don't wait till you get your pancreatic cancer or your gastric cancer or your reflux or your Barrett's esophagus or whatever. Treat it now. Get ahead of the game. Treat it now. You Scots, and I know I'm being very rude now. My sister lives.
We can take it. Don't worry, we can take it.
You Scots are the best or the worst addicts of all. You have a particularly addictive tendency, and it's for cigarettes, alcohol, drugs. But the worst, the most pernicious addiction of all is to sugar and refined carbohydrates.
Yeah.
The problem with those, and the thing is, we all live stress lives. Any life is full of stress, isn't it? It's intrinsic to life. And how do we deal with that stress? We turn to addiction. We had that glass of wine, that deep fries Mars bar, that packet of Gaulois, or whatever. And it's short-term gain, but long-term pain. But say the worst and most pernicious addiction of all is our addiction to carbohydrates and ultra-processed foods. And the point about ultra-processed foods, and this is what's so interesting, is they were designed to be addictive.
100%.
And they are. And so they might satisfy initially our taste buds and the sensation in our mouth, but they don't fool the gut hormones. So we eat that ultra processed food. Oh, yum, yum, that's nice. That feels good. But the gut hormones say, no, you've just eaten a load of rubbish. Go and find something decent. Go and eat more. So we eat more of that same food. And so we put on weight, we develop an upper fermenting gut, and all the problems that arise as a result of that. And once people can understand that issue and the mechanisms by which these ultra-processed foods are so damaging, then they can start to do something about it.
And leaky gut's a big one, isn't it, Sarah? I mean, that's everywhere just now in some shape or form. That's popping its head up everywhere, eh?
It's an inevitable result of the upper fermenting gut. So, as I say, sort the upper fermenting gut and you cure the hypochlorhydria, you cure the leaky gut, and you cure many pathologies downstream from those things that go wrong.
Yeah. Well, listen, that surgeon was very persuasive. I spent a couple of minutes with you yesterday when we chatted, and you said some things to me that resonated. And as I said, I've got all the food in the world I've got all the reasons and all the access to do the right things. I've got Clive de Carle's, all his stuff. I've got all the Barbara Neal. I've got all the books, but a couple of minutes with you yesterday, and suddenly a couple of light bulbs went on. I thought, no, I'm going to do that. And I think what people have at this event is a chance to listen to you for 6+ hours and get a chance to meet you in person and buy your books and learn a bit more, and perhaps go to one of your events, which you run a lot of and they're very popular, or we do a combined event.
That'd be lovely.
Well. So it's a great little taster for people to get a feel for you, alongside Dr. Bryan Ardis and a cast of great speakers. We're very, very excited about it. Sarah, I cannot wait to get you there. I cannot wait to kickstart this event. I'm so looking forward to it. And thank you for coming along. Thank you for playing an important role as a keynote speaker at the event. And you're going to have a lot of people listening to every word that you're saying, and they're going to be mobbing you after in the breaks and all the rest of it, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. So listen, thank you for your time. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for speaking out. It's very important work that you do. And thank you for the help that you've given thousands of people. And thanks for the books as well. You're doing a great job, and we salute you for that. And we cannot wait to see you in March.
Fantastic. My pleasure. Thank you for your time, Steve.
Thank you.